Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Urban Fellows Program webinar. Today's webinar is on Commons and Electives. These are two out of the 7 components of the UFP. And IIHS faculty Sudeshna Mitra is here to take you through both the components. So she'll take some time to take you through them, and post that we'll open it up to the audience. So if you have questions or comments, please drop them in the Q&A box and we'll address them towards the end of the session. Over to you, Sudeshna.
Thank you so much, Tanvi. And a warm welcome to everybody who has joined today. As Tanvi said, I'm Sudeshna Mitra and I'm faculty here at IIHS. And I want to give you a little bit of background and what to expect with two of the main components of the curriculum that we have for the Urban Fellows program, right? So just to kind of, most of you already are familiar with this, but just a quick sort of a background, you know that this is a 9 to 10 month fellowship, which is completely residential, which means that you will have to be in Bangalore. All the classes, all the project work, etc., is going to be based out of the Bangalore campus. And during the course of this program, it's a residential program, so you will live here. And during the course of the program, you will have like 7 elements, which the first semester, in a sense, the whole thing is sort of structured into 3 semesters. And the first semester we call is the Commons semester, followed by the Elective Semester, and then you have the Internships semester. Now, the common semester, you will be taking about half the time is going to be in terms of a little bit more than half the time actually, is going to be in class. They are taught sessions across 6 different layers, and I'll take you through what those 6 different layers are. In parallel, you will also be taking skill labs, across a whole range of things. And there has been sort of a webinar which will go specifically into the details of the various components of the skill labs, as well as the practica, which is a field-based exercise. So again, I think you have had a separate webinar on the practica and projects, so I'm not going to go into that so much today. But the Commons element, which is like sort of the taught element of the Commons semester, in class element, I'm going to talk about that. And the similar format sort of goes into the elective semester as well. There's a series of classes that you can take, which are the electives. You will have continuing sort of skill labs, and you will also have projects instead of practica. All right, so let me talk about a little bit about both the Commons and the electives. Now, one of the fundamental reasons why we decided to start the program, the Urban Fellows program, was because our cities are complex places to live in, to work in. And many people across a lot of different professions are actually coming together every single day to make our cities work. Now, some of the professions that are associated are intuitive, and we sort of easily link them to doing urban work. For example, somebody who is a planner, somebody who's an architect, somebody who's an engineer working in the municipal corporation, or somebody who's working on energy systems, again, an engineering background, but somebody's working on buildings and built form in urban areas. These are things that we know, automatically sort of say, okay, yes, we know how their work relates to how to keep the city going. But actually, well beyond these sort of, set of intuitive set of disciplines, there's a whole set of other things. There are lawyers, there are chartered accountants, there are people in media, there are activists, there are researchers, there are social scientists, there are people who do art, who are also involved in the everyday production of what urban life means, doing their work to keep the city going. The wholeness of what a city means is actually the culmination of all of these different sets of work. Now, so what this program really does is to have that kind of a broader view of what urban practice is. Like what I just described to you is our word for that is urban practice. That you have a disciplinary background, but your practice is associated with urban issues, with urban challenges. It is about urban life, about urban experiences. It speaks to that. It helps in that everyday production of the city. And so this program is really to bring together people from lots of different kinds of disciplinary backgrounds and help them to either hone their own work in the urban further by getting a more holistic views of urban challenges that are there, or uh, sometimes even sort of shift a little bit. If you're doing some one kind of a work but you want to be, sort of doing a broader set of urban issues, you want to be looking at slightly different issues, this program kind of helps people to kind of make those kinds of transitions as well. So the word again that we use for this kind of urban practice pedagogically in the teaching, one of the fundamental things for us is interdisciplinarity. Now, interdisciplinarity is very, very strongly embedded in the idea of the commons. Right? Now, the commons is basically, like I said, a set of taught classes. There are 6 layers to it, right? Social identity, planning in the urban, law, governance, and policy. Like these are the different layers that I'm telling you about. The urban planning and build form is 1, infrastructure and services is 1, social identity and practice is 1, urban economy is 1, you have urban sustainability is 1, and you have law, governance, and policy, which is the 6th. So there are all of these 6 things. Now, you will have classes which will focus on each one of these topics during, this 2.5 month, 3-month commons thing. Every week, you're going to have one of these layers sort of working itself through. But in addition to like taking classes individually, you will also see that certain elements, certain kinds of thematics will travel across all these 6 layers. Many of these classes we actually co-teach. So you will actually see that in the class, there will be more than one faculty, and there will be discussions within the faculty itself, coming from different disciplinary backgrounds or coming from different kinds of perspectives on a certain thing, talking together in the form or in the sort of everyday teaching itself, right? So this interdisciplinarity is sort of held in the way that we teach as well, right? And so the idea with the 6 layers is that across the different disciplines that we get every year, like, we get fellows from different disciplinary backgrounds every year. Everyone will find a home in one of the layers. Somebody in the class will feel like an expert when something is being taught. If you come from a planning background, the weeks that planning in the urban is being taught, you're like, I know this stuff. I know the vocabulary. And when it goes to, for example, social identity and practice, you will find yourself at C. And everybody in the class goes through that cycle. There will be 1 or 2 elements where you will find yourself at home, and for all the other elements, you will learn new vocabulary. You will learn what have been the debates that have been going around in this particular discipline. How do we address it? What are some of the methods? What are some of the approaches that people have figured out over time to tackle this particular challenge? Like, for example, infrastructure and services, there is 24/7 water supply. We've heard of the term, but what are the pros and cons, right? What are the kind of issues that are associated from a governance perspective, from an operational and engineering perspective, from the perspective of affordability and access, from the perspective of law, from the perspective of governance, right? Each one of these things is that in that week, you will hear about that debate, you will make linkages to the other layers. And at the end of the 6 layers of commons, the usual thing that we get from our fellows is that, okay, I just like got an overwhelming amount of, vocabulary and information and ways of linking things that I had not thought about before, which takes every individual outside their comfort level of their own disciplinary training, finding out what are the limits of their own discipline, what are the places in which it will be good to kind of associate and collaborate with people from other disciplines. And so it sort of really sort of creates that base. The commons term is really the foundation that we create for interdisciplinarity, right? Nobody is going to become an expert in some other discipline, but it is a place for people to recognize and understand the trajectory, the disciplinary trajectory, the vocabulary, the debates, like some of the like key debates that are there in that particular sector, and to think between registers of disciplines, right? So that's the first part. Everybody takes the commons, right? Like it's not something that you choose. Everybody has to go through the commons, all the 6 layers. After the common semester, you will come to the elective semester. Now, electives, you have a choice. Usually we have 4 rounds of electives. So you get to choose 4 different electives through your elective semester out of a larger list of 9 or 12, right? So every cycle, you will basically choose 1 out of 3 or 4 other, out of a total 3 or 4. Now, or 2. Some semesters it might be like there might be a choice between 2 electives and you pick 1. And people make these choices in slightly different ways. Some of them are looking after the commons, after their perspective has been broadened, they kind of want to specialize back and focus back on the issues and the questions that they came with originally. So, right, so they pick a set of electives that helps them sort of go deeper into that particular issue. It may be because they come from that background, or because they are very interested. Like somebody will come and say that, I really want to work on the environment and sustainability and climate change, and I want to, sort of pick my 4 electives in a way that builds out. Some people will come and say that, I actually want to continue the journey that I started in the commons. I want to keep myself open to like learning new information, and I want to take 4 electives that will help me broaden my horizons a little bit more. So different decisions, and we kind of, one of the big things here at IIHS is that you get a lot of faculty mentorship. So every step of the way, we are actually going to be talking to you all, figuring out what your own interests are, what do you want to do after the fellowship, what are the things that you've enjoyed, where your interests are, new methods, new vocabularies, etc., that has sparked your interest. And we help you, we advise you about what kind of electives, what to expect in the electives, and what might be a good set of choices for you going forward. Right? And so, so again, like I said, that the electives play a role of sort of grounding you down a little bit. There's a lot more, there'd be a lot more like content on theory, for instance. There's a whole set of electives which will like help you conceptualize things a lot more. There will be several electives that will be much more practice oriented, right? How do you actually build a fecal sludge management plan? Like there are people who have the experience of that who will be there. Like there are theory-based ones, there are thematic ones, like for example, if you want to work in housing or you want to work in sort of mobility, right? You can take thematic-based electives as well, and you can take practice-based, project-based, operational kind of electives as well. So all these 3 types are there, and people, sort of pick and choose depending on their own trajectory. There is a longer list of the kind of electives that we have offered over the years, and depending on availability of faculty and timing, etc., we will also be curating a similar list out of that for this coming year.
Sudeshna, there's one question. Should I read it out? It says, are electives offered on a first come first serve basis, or will everybody looking to learn about specific elective be accommodated?
Yeah, so the way it works is that we ask everybody to give their preferences for all the electives, right? So if, like, for example, 2 are being offered or 3 are being offered, you will do first choice, second choice, third choice, right? Or first choice, second choice. Now, most of the time, because we have a little bit of sort of a minimum threshold limit so that, all electives can be offered. Like, so example, if like only 2 people have picked an elective, typically then we will not be able to offer it, which means that, that elective, like those 2 people don't get their first choice kind of thing. Most of the time, I think in past years, we've been able to accommodate people's first choices in their electives. In very, very like outside circumstances where, like I said, there are mentoring sessions. So we also just know people, not just like putting in first choice, second choice, third choice, but also people who are like, I don't really care between the first and the second choice, I'm going to be happy with both. So in those particular cases, we might also give people a second choice. So in case like we are having a problem with either the minimum limit or the sort of the upper limit of the classes. But typically, there is never been that much of an issue of people like getting their third preference or like getting a preference which they absolutely don't want to engage with. It's a very it's a very sort of a process which is open. There's a lot of conversation involved. There's a lot of mentoring involved, and so people find the electives, that they're looking to kind of get there. So move on to the next question. If I want to focus on my urban e-governance and sustainability projects, how should I start? So I'm a little confused by this question, because if you have a project that you want to work on, then the UFP is not necessarily the place, right? This is definitely an interdisciplinary program. It is meant for people who are kind of looking to broaden either the work that they do, or in the work that they do, find more connections to other disciplines, right? Like where they are feeling like, the work is not going far enough, not getting implemented. There's a gap between the rhetoric and the practice. These are some of the triggers that bring people to our program. People who are unhappy with those kinds of this thing and want to therefore develop a much more holistic sort of an understanding of the issues that are there around them, figure out how to actually implement things, figure out how to resolve gaps between rhetoric and practice. So excuse the noise, there's some background noise right now. So the thing is that if you are interested in, e-governance and sustainability from that kind of a perspective, that here are two words, they used quite often, but there is also a lot of stuff that seems to be like buzzy around these words, or in the way that it gets implemented, there seems to be lots of gaps. And so I want to understand more holistically. If that's something, then you should definitely apply for the program. However, if you are very focused on just these topics, there are definitely other programs out there which do focus on just these things. But if you want to do this as a more holistic thing, we have various people in IIHS whose work speaks exactly to these topics. So they are reflected in the electives, they are reflected in the way that we teach the commons. And so you will be able to write from these perspectives in the commons and the electives, work around projects, pick a practical topic that is around these stuff. So there'll be lots of opportunities to engage with these topics, as long as you're open to bringing in an interdisciplinary lens to looking at these issues.
Sudeshna, should I move on to the next question?
Yeah.
Abhijit is asking, is it difficult when we choose some unfamiliar electives?
Anything that is absolutely a new topic is something that obviously requires you to put in the work and do the readings that we give. But the thing is that faculty here is very approachable, which means that they are willing to not just engage with you in class, but many faculty have office hours quite regularly on a weekly basis, which means that you can also talk to them after class. They will always be happy to give you additional reading resources or other kinds of resources to kind of help you think through various things. So you get a lot of handholding and a lot of mentoring through this process. But which also basically means that you have to hold up your end of the bargain and put in the work. And most people have sort of their response has been that, it was hard work, but at the end of it, really feel like a different person. And my thought process is different, and, I learned a lot out of it. So you won't be left to sort of figure this out on your own. That's, I think, the best answer that I can give.
The next question is, will our electives have any bearing on the kind of projects that we choose to do? Or will we have freedom to pursue any kind of project irrespective of the elective we have chosen?
So when the projects list comes out every year, faculty who would like you to take a particular course as a prerequisite to kind of doing that project will mention that. But those are rare. Those are not, that's not a common practice. It helps it often helps that if you're working on a particular subject to also take that class, because then you get familiar with the readings and the vocabulary, which you may have to do separately if you're doing as a part of the project, or at least parts of it that is relevant to the project that you're doing. So an alignment always helps, but it is definitely not something that is absolutely essential that you cannot apply to a project you do. That's the other reason. Some people come from, like, for example, this year, my project was on land based financing, and I wanted somebody who had an economics background to work with me. But the person who ended up working with me did not actually take my class, but which was fine because they already kind of came from that background. A lot of things that I was talking about, we were able to discuss during our mentoring and office hours, otherwise outside class, right? So every year, I think it's slightly dependent on faculty, but every year most people have, like, your elective choices come first, right? And then if there is a project requirement, that can be figured out. Faculty who absolutely need it will make it clear, like, upfront. I think those are all the questions, right?
Yeah, there are no open questions for now. So anybody has any other questions also on the admissions or anything else about the UFP, please feel free to add them. So Deshna, anything else that you want to add on the commons and electives? Do you think might be useful?
Not really. I think most of it is
Yeah.
covered because, I mean, and the thing is that there is a lot of details on the website as well. But if there is anything over and beyond that that people are not so sure about, then I'm happy to answer. Because, I mean,
Yeah.
uh,
There's a question that says, I want to learn how to spearhead my own research. Will projects or practica help in this regard or offer some training?
yes, definitely. I mean, people, projects and practica will both help. In addition, a lot of the skill labs will help. Like, for example, there's a question, there is a skill lab that is called framing the inquiry, right? Which we do with you right early, like first thing, after you join. So which helps, like, how do you, like, frame a research question? How is your question different from your inquiry, right? Like, what is the process of working through it? There is another one that's called from narrative to argument, right? That's also very useful because, again, it's like, if you build your own research, these are the kind of steps that you'll have to take. So I think the experience, the actual field-based experience that you get in the practica and the projects, combined with the methods trainings that you get in the skill labs, um, are both very good inputs if you sort of want to develop your own research going forward. In addition, in very rare circumstances, like when we know that there is a very good reason, people have also used their internship time to do an independent research project. But I want to highlight over and over again that this is only available to fellows who, say, have enrolled in a PhD program and are, like, going into it, and this will help, that kind of a process. Or we have had people who are already teachers, they are teaching somewhere, and they want, like, they know already how to frame this research question, and they want to use the internship time to kind of take their work forward a little bit. So we are flexible with those kinds of things as well, where on a case to case basis it makes sense. The internship time can also be used for an independent research project.
I just want to say that the next webinar is on Tuesday and it's going to be on skill labs. So if you want to hear more about those, so please do attend. And for more information, please visit our website. There are also testimonials from fellows there that you can watch and listen from them. We also have a students webinar which is coming up next Thursday, so please join that as well. And yes, please fill up your application form. If you have questions, trouble filling your form, the website has a couple of numbers or even email address that you can write to. Just write to us, and if you have any problem, we'll take it up. If there's a Q&A, where can we sign up for the upcoming webinar? So in the website, the top right column will have the webinar tab. It'll take you to the full schedule. Let me just see if I can just
share the screen or
Yeah.
something,
No,
right?
no, I'll just send the link.
Okay.
The link to the webinars, so you can just see the schedule, register for the upcoming ones, and we're also uploading our previous webinars as well, so you can watch if you missed any. So yeah, any closing comments, Sudeshna?
No, I mean, I'd love to see most of you, sort of finish your applications, and at the interview stage, I look forward to meeting you. And like I said, like Tanvi also just said, there you can reach out to us via email, via phone, and across all of these webinars. So any questions, like just don't hold back, just ask, get the clarifications. Thank you.